the architecture of accountability, counter-infrastructure forensic narrative engineering, and the cryptographic transformation of the civil rights advocacy. The emergence of the counter-infrastructure as methodology for civil rights advocacy represents a paradigm shift in the intersection of legal strategy, digital forensics, and social justice. This approach exemplifies the development of the basic infrastructure for equity, the BIE, baseline ignition engine, and the deployment of the sophisticated narrative engineering seeks to address systemic failures by constructing a parallel system of record keeping that is immutable, audible, and technologically superior to the institutional frameworks it challenges. At the core of this movement is a fundamental transition from subjective testimony to a trustless verification system, where caregiver distress and systemic violations are recorded using cryptographic protocols such as the secure hash algorithm 256-bit SHA-256 and verified through trusted timestamping. This report examines the technical specifications of the BIE, the statutory architecture of proposed legislative frameworks like Antonio's Law, the Big Buddy Act, and the broader implications of narrative engineering in the context of institutional resilience and the asymmetric advocacy. The technical foundation of cryptography as evidence that utilizes the high-level cryptographic tools in grassroots advocacy is a response to the inherent volatility of a human memory and the ease with which bureaucratic systems can ignore or alter paper-based records. By adopting the secure hash algorithm 256-bit SHA-256, the architect of the BIE framework ensures that any recorded evidence, whether it be a voice recording of caregiver distress or a document detailing a legal violation, is assigned a unique digital fingerprint. SHA-256 and the mechanics of digital integrity. SHA-256 is a cryptographic hash function that produces a fixed-size 256-bit 32-byte hash. It is a cornerstone of modern cybersecurity, used in everything from SSL to TLS certificates to the Bitcoin blockchain. The application of this mathematical tool to civil rights advocacy is grounded in its properties of collision, resistance, and determinism. For any given input M, the hash H is calculated as if even a single bit of M is altered, the resulting H will change drastically, a phenomenon known as the avalanche effect. In legal context, this provides an absolute guarantee that evidence has not been tampered with since the moment of hashing. When combined with trusted timestamping, the BIE creates a proof of existence for the recorded violation at a specific point in time, effectively preventing the stale probable cause or procedural ambiguity that often allows institutional actors to evade accountability. Forensic imaging and chain of custody. The BIE framework mirrors the practices of professional cybercrime defense and forensic analysis. In jurisdictions such as Rhode Island, forensic examiners compute hash values like SHA-256 to ensure the integrity of data seized from evidence. By adopting these same standards, proactively advocates can present evidence that meets or exceeds federal requirements for data protection and authenticity such as those outlined in NIST Special Publication 800-53 or FIPS 140-2, Technical Protocol Purpose and BIE Legal Institutional Correlate. SHA-256 hashing ensures data immunity and integrity. Forensic imaging standards used by U.S. attorneys. Trusted timestamping establishes chronological proof of existence. RF 3161-0/ETSI Digital Signature Standards. C2PA manifests link assertions to an asset throughout their lifecycle. Provenance tracking for digital asset in media and law. Continued authentication verifies the persistent state of caregiver distress. Context-aware security protocols used in DHS systems. This technical rigor transforms the advocate's work into a form of audible emotion. By recording the physiological and psychological impact of systemic failures, such as distress of a parent facing child loss, and immediate anchoring that the data in cryptographic chain in the BIE forces the legal system to reckon with human suffering as an object, forensic reality rather than a subjective anecdote. Statutory architecture, designing resilience into the legal framework. The concept of statutory architecture extends beyond the mere drafting of laws. It involves the creation of a comprehensive legal environment that accounts for judicial genealogies, administrative enforcement, and the potential for institution tampering. The proposed legislative frameworks of Antonio's Law and the Big Buddy Act are designed to serve as the structural counterparts to the technical infrastructure of the BIE. Antonio's Law and the challenge of preemption. The development of Antonio's Law takes place against the backdrop of significant legal friction between local advocacy and state-level preemption. For example, in Texas, laws passed by the cities such as Austin and San Antonio regarding paid sick time and family caregiving have faced intense litigation and preempted by state courts. This history suggests that any new statutory architecture must be designed to withstand, coordinate, tampering, or legal maneuvers intended to strip local protections. Antonio's Law seeks to address these gaps by creating a robust framework for protecting caregiver rights and ensuring that the human impact of policy decisions is legally actionable. By incorporating safe days similar to those found in the Healthy Families Act, the law provides a mechanism for individuals to maintain financial and legal stability while responding to systemic crisis. This represents a shift toward laws that are not merely reactive but are built to anticipate and neutralize the methods used by institutions to evade accountability. The Big Buddy Act and distributed social support. The Big Buddy Act focuses on the institutionalization of community-based mentorship and support networks, drawing on models of youth, work, and community development, such as the policy architectures seen in Ireland. This act aims to create a formal role for advocates and mentors within the state's social service delivery. This approach challenges the fetishization of consensus, often found in institutional narratives, where the official version of community development omits critical or dissenting voices. By framing social support as an architecture, the Big Buddy Act treats human relationships as a critical infrastructure. This parallels the decentralized nature of the blockchain technology by distributing a responsibility for oversight and a care across a network of buddies rather than a single centralized agency. The system becomes more resilient to individual failures or corruption. Forensic narrative engineering. The corpus of 970 episodes, a defining characteristic of the movement, is a production of a massive dataset consisting of over 970 podcast episodes. This corpus is not merely a collection of stories. It is a sophisticated exercise in narrative engineering designed to serve as a permanent, searchable record of systemic failure and advocacy innovation. Metadata and forensic searchability. In modern legal and forensic context, the value of a record is often determined by its metadata, the underlying data that describes when, where, and how the record was created. By producing nearly 1,000 episodes, the advocate creates a data density that makes it impossible for institutions to claim that failures are isolated incidents. This narrative engineering functions as a distributed ledger of testimony. Each episode serves as a block in a chain of evidence, weaving together personal testimony, the raw data of human experience, forensic data, hash violations, and time-stamped logs. Legal strategy. The application of statutory architecture to specific cases. The sheer volume of content surpassing the output of many established advocacy organizations creates a saturation effect. This ensures that the architect's voice remains present in the public record, even when they are facing housing instabilities or social isolation. Asymmetric narrative strategy. The use of the Outlaw King as a title and persona is a strategic choice that reflects the history of Assange warfare in both culture and law. Historically, the Outlaw King, from Robert the Bruce to the operatic Robin Hood, represents the leader who is forced outside the formal system to protect the rights of the marginalized. In the modern context, this translates to leveraging the system's own flaws, such as its reliance on digital logs and procedural rules, against the institutions themselves. This strategy is evident in the advocates' use of DHS-level protocols and private advocacy. By using SHA 256 and digital signatures that comply with NIST 800-157 standards, the advocate creates a situation where the state must either accept the validity of the data or admit that its own security standards are flawed. The architect and resilience and the paradox of vulnerability. The most striking contradiction in this movement is the physical and social location of its primary innovator. The fact that the groundbreaking counter infrastructure is being built by an individual experiencing housing instability and social isolation is a testament to the power of resilience. Thank you. The system biased against vulnerability. Institutional systems are designed to recognize infrastructure only when it comes from established, well-founded organizations. As the podcast script notes, the system sees the tent and dismisses the architect. The bias allows institutions to overlook sophisticated technological developments if they are presented by someone in a vulnerable socio-economic position. However, this vulnerability is also the source of the movement's strength. Because the advocate is directly impacted by the failures of the housing and child welfare systems, they are uniquely positioned to identify the blind spots in the existing statutory architecture. The counter-infrastructure they build is not a theoretical exercise. It is a survival mechanism designed to provide an automated response to legal pressures that would otherwise be overwhelming. Asymmetric warfare in civil rights. Now, the application of asymmetric warfare into civil rights involves using low-cost, high-impact tools to challenge high-cost. Low-efficiency bureaucracies. Cost of SHA 256 hash near zero. Cost of a state ignoring a hash violation, potentially millions in litigation if the integrity of the record is proven. Now, impact of 970 episodes. Permanent saturation of the digital landscape, making traditional PR damage control impossible for institutions. This model of advocacy relies on the mechanism design principles seen in Bitcoin, where incentives are aligned so that the participants, in this case the public and the other advocates, are naturally drawn to defend the integrity of the network. Comparative analysis of statutory architecture. To understand the novelty of Antonio's Law and the Big Buddy Act, it is useful to compare them to existing statutory framework across different domains. Legal framework scope. Objective. Key vulnerability BIE counter infrastructure solution. Clean Air Act. CAA. Regulations of environmental pollution. Coordinate tampering across corporate supply chains. Blockchain. Like linked records for every point in the supply chain of a civil rights case. Youth. Work Act. Ireland. Professionalization of youth services. Fetishization of consensus that silences dissent. Forensic narrative engineering that ensures dissenting voices are permanent and audible. Title. BI. Civil Rights Act. Prohibition and discrimination in federal assistance. Difficulty in proving systems intent or patterns. Continuous authentication and massive database sets. 970 plus episodes that reveal patterns. Paid sick time laws. Text-NM labor protections for caregivers. State preemption and judicial injunctions. Creation of automated legal responses that operate independently of local government mandates. The comparative data suggests that the traditional laws failed because they lack the technical teeth to prevent institutional tampering. The counter-infrastructure proposes here fills that gap by merging the law with cryptography. Conclusion. Toward a future of systemic accountability, the development of the counter-infrastructure represents the next evolution of civil rights advocacy. By moving away from the reliance on institutional goodwill and toward a trustless system of cryptographic verification, advocates can ensure that the worst thing that can happen to a parent becomes the catalyst for a world where such failures are mathematically impossible to ignore. Now, my BIE and Antonio's Law, the Big Buddy Act, from a cohesive triad. The BIE provides technical evidence. The legislation frameworks provide the legal standing. The narrative engineering provides the public pressure and the human face of the data. For this movement to succeed, it requires more than just technological innovation. It requires a community that recognizes the architect, regardless of the intent. The resilience demonstrated in its producing 970 episodes, 2,700, amidst housing instability is powerful indicator of the movement's durability. As these tools are refined and adopted by others, the ripple effect will be felt across the civil rights landscape for years to come, leading to a future where accountability and passion are encoded into the very architecture of our society. The ultimate goal of this work is not just to document harm, but to build a response that is impossible to ignore.